Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving into a fascinating concept called Artificial Business Intelligence, or ABI for short. It's basically a framework designed to smash through one of the most frustrating corporate bottlenecks out there, knowing your company has the exact data you need, but you just can't get to it in time. Let's unpack how this whole paradigm works.
So, I want you to start by asking yourself a really simple but honestly super powerful question. What if you could just talk to your business? Imagine bypassing those crazy wait times entirely. No more submitting support tickets to IT, no more hunting down analysts who are already swamped, just having a fluid, completely natural conversation with your company's deepest data to get immediate answers. It sounds a little like sci-fi, right? Chatting with your database? But this conversational approach is rapidly becoming the new standard for enterprise intelligence.
Think about modern enterprise data kind of like a massive bank vault. It's locking away all these critical insights, your loan portfolios, complex risk assessments, emerging market trends, the whole shebang. And the ultimate irony here? Organizations already have this data. They've paid millions of dollars to collect it, store it, and clean it up over the years. But the VPs, the managers, the business leaders who actually need that information to steer the ship, they literally cannot reach it. The vault is just shut tight to the very people who rely on it the most. And this friction, it turns incredibly expensive, valuable data into a massive liability. Your insights end up trapped behind these crazy complex tools that need highly specialized training just to log into. So what happens? You become entirely dependent on a tiny handful of technical gatekeepers. I mean, we've all been there, right? You submit a ticket into the void, crossing your fingers that your urgent request doesn't get buried at the bottom of some analyst's inbox. And by the time you finally get that spreadsheet back a week later, the market has already shifted and your window of opportunity is completely gone.
Historically, this legacy paradigm for getting data has just been a notoriously slow crawl. You're drafting these long emails trying to explain exactly what you want, you're waiting in a queue, and then you get back a static, flat spreadsheet that, let's be honest, probably doesn't even answer your original question. But the shift we're looking at here is moving toward an intelligent reality. In this new model, you just ask a plain English question, and the system instantly translates that conversational intent into executable code. Instead of waiting around for a manual pull, it processes what you mean and fires back interactive dashboards immediately. It's all about trading delayed frustration for instant, data-driven decisions.
Now, sitting right at the center of all this is the ABI engine. Think of it as the ultimate translator between human curiosity and raw data. It takes your conversational intent, say you're asking to see a maturity wall for a loan portfolio, and you want it as a stacked bar chart with specific risk color coding. The ABI engine takes that plain English, totally understands the context, and boom, immediately outputs the executed insight. You aren't just putting in a request for an export anymore. You are quite literally having a dynamic, two-way conversation with your business metrics. In practice, this means a user just types a question into a search bar and it executes instantly. And the reason it can pull this off is because the system inherently understands your specific business context. So when someone types maturity wall, the engine knows exactly what that means for your specific company's financial structure. It defines visual preferences on the fly. And honestly, the absolute best part, zero SQL or coding knowledge is required from the user. Literally none. You just ask your question and the system handles all the heavy lifting in the background. And what you get back goes way beyond a simple data dump. Your raw curiosity is transformed into this structured, highly readable format. It automatically pulls up the most critical numbers using KPI cards right at the top and generates the exact interactive charts you asked for. Plus, it automatically bakes in your internal business rules, like your company's unique risk color coding. So instead of staring at a flat, overwhelming wall of raw numbers, you get a fully formatted, interactive asset generated in seconds. Now, I know what some of you are thinking. What about AI hallucinations? What about the dreaded black box? Well, the architecture of ABI is specifically designed for total transparency. To guarantee accuracy, you can essentially peel back the visual dashboard and look at the exact SQL source code running underneath it. There are absolutely no black boxes here. Every single report is completely traceable and auditable. If a number looks a little funny, your data engineers can trace it straight back to the source query. Your tech teams keep full 100% oversight over the data. To really engineer that absolute trust, we've got to look under the hood at a mechanism called Retrieval Augmented Generation, or RAG for short. Let's break this down because it's actually fascinating. RAG is a framework that basically forces a generic AI model to read a mandatory company handbook before it does anything else. It has to retrieve specific, tightly controlled corporate definitions before it ever attempts to write a single line of SQL code. This makes sure the answers you get aren't just, intelligent AI guesses. They are strictly grounded in the reality of your specific business.
This whole process creates what's essentially a contextual funnel. Look, a generic AI model right off the shelf is actually a massive risk for a company. It doesn't know anything about your internal data structures, so it might just invent an answer that sounds plausible but is completely wrong. But by forcing those generic AI capabilities and your internal business rules through this RAG framework, the output is safely filtered. What comes out the other end is purely contextual intelligence. It completely protects you from the risks of standard AI by filtering every single thing through your verified truth. Okay, let's talk about the financial side and the true ROI here. The ABI approach doesn't look at your traditional heavy data warehouses as obsolete tech. Not at all. It sees them as a massive sunk cost just waiting to be unlocked. You've already invested serious capital to build that accurate data foundation, right? Well, ABI doesn't ask you to rip out or rebuild any of that infrastructure. Instead, it acts like a massive gateway expansion. It's the golden key that unlocks that data warehouse, democratizes access for your entire team, and turns a restrictive storage locker into an interactive, everyday tool. Adopting this tech usually follows a step-by-step roadmap as your team gets more comfortable. It typically kicks off with gold views, which are just pre-built answers for your most common complex questions. Then you build out a semantic layer. This is huge. It means you define a highly specific term like net revenue exactly one time, and the AI uses that perfect definition forever. Next is the clarifier node, where the AI will actually stop and ask you clarifying questions if your prompt is too vague. And finally, all this builds up to a completely verified library of zero-cost instant answers. Ultimately, this is a fundamental shift in how we actually interact with information at work. We're crossing out the era of requesting static reports and waiting in line, and we're highlighting a dynamic, ongoing conversation with our data. And you know what's a really cool side effect of this? It actively encourages curiosity across your entire team. When there's no penalty, no multi-day wait time just to ask a simple follow-up question, people naturally ask more questions. They dig deeper into the numbers, which naturally creates a much smarter, more analytical workforce. The absolute sweet spot of this entire framework, empowered decision-making, lives right at the intersection of three key things. You need pristine enterprise data, highly contextual AI to actually interpret it, and multi-layered security to lock it down. When you perfectly overlap those three elements, you cultivate an unstoppable operational culture. You get incredible speed because answers are instant. You build absolute trust because the code is entirely auditable. And you nurture exploration because all that traditional friction is just gone. Which leaves us with one final exciting thought to wrap up this explainer. As you look at your own infrastructure, your own isolated dashboards, remember those massive sunk costs. The data's already there. The heavy lifting of gathering and storing it, it's done. The only question left is, how much faster could your organization innovate if your team could finally just sit down and talk to that data? Think about that the next time you're stuck waiting a week for a simple report. Thanks for joining me on this explainer. Keep asking those great questions, and I'll see you next time.